Well, I guess as we are on 1 o'clock, it's a good time to make a start. I know a few of you are still joining, but we'll do our best to stick to time today. And thank you so much for joining us for this Missing People Charity Spotlight event and lunchtime webinar. I hope you managed to munch your way through a sandwich, or in my case, crackers and cheese for lunch. And just a great opportunity to talk to you about where the charity's at the moment. And we're mighty glad to see you today to help us in our mission to be a lifeline when someone disappears. And we really value your support. I know we have supporters on with us today who are really committed to the charity, and we thank you all, and welcome to anyone who is new to Missing People. The community is a place full of energy and of hope and spirit, and dealing with one of society's biggest issues of people going missing. And it's really on some scale, which is why we need the support of people like you to help achieve our mission to be that lifeline. With someone going missing in the UK every 90 seconds, it's really significant issue. And we know that people go missing for such a range of reasons, but we do know that when people are missing, that they do face risks, and many people sadly come to harm whilst they are missing. And the good news is, out of the 170,000 who go missing every year, reported missing to the police, that many people are found safe. So out of that 170,000 figure, 70,000 of those are children who go missing, and just under 100,000 are adults who go missing in our country every year. And that represents a number of people, but sometimes people go missing more than once. And so over 350,000 reports of missing in the UK. So you get an idea of the scale of this. We're really pleased that the good news of how many do come back, and I'm proud that the charity can play a part in helping people to be found, to be reconnected, to make that first step back. And you'll be pleased to know that around 80% of children are returned, found safe within the first 24 hours of being reported missing, and 75% of adults who are reported missing are found within that first 24 hours. So that's good news, and that keeps us driven to get the appeals out there, to reach out to people who are missing. You know, this last year, we've all known what it's been like to miss people that we love and not be able to be with them, not be able to see them, to give them a hug. And we were able to relate to missing it in a different way, but no one can ever know what missing is like unless that's been experienced. And I'm particularly grateful to Beck, who's joining us today, and I'm going to introduce in a moment to you, for sharing some of her experiences with you, as only she can do. I think the services that our team provides are quite incredible. I take my hat off to them every day, and they're super skilled, super warm, and really understand what it's like to be a missing child out there on their own in a crisis, in the dark, to be an adult feeling like your family will be better off without you, or feeling that you just can't cope, and are able to respond to those calls 7 days a week from morning until night to provide support to someone. And as someone that's taken those calls, I know how hard it can be, the pressure you feel when you've got someone on the end of the line and you just want to get them somewhere safe. Last year, we helped 5,000 children in that sort of a situation. And we helped over 2,300 adults who were in that sort of a situation. And we provided support to families from the first frightening moments of someone being reported missing to the sometimes weeks and months, and sadly, sometimes years, and when someone has been missing. And last year alone, we supported 2,900 families who have somebody missing. And as I said, the charity is filled with this sense of hope, because we are able to make a difference. And I hope that you understand the sort of impact that you're able to help make as well into the lives of people who go missing. Either you are helping or you want to work out ways of helping the charity. And I think the size and scale of the issue is significant, and the impact the charity is also significant, and you can be part of that, alongside LexisNexis, who are with us today. Thanks for joining, who are sponsors of our incredible lost contact service that help trace people that have fallen out of touch with their family. Might not necessarily be reported missing to the police, but in all of my experience, to fall out of contact with somebody over a number of years usually signifies that there's been some upset, some problem, some vulnerability down the line. And even in the last few weeks, lovely messages back from a sister just saying to us, "I'm so grateful from the bottom of my heart for helping me find my brother. I'm just so glad to have him back in my life." And another mum saying, "Your organisation was able to help find my son so quickly, and that the mum is now able to help her son through everything that he is facing." So we're really proud of the huge range of services that we have, and particularly how the organisation's adapted over this last year. And I hope you don't think that we're blowing our own trumpet here, but I was at an event the other day where they were saying, it was an event of philanthropists, and they were saying that the third sector, that charities like ours right across the sector, were incredibly innovative and agile to respond to all of the demands that the crisis put upon us. And within the organisation, we so quickly moved to getting our team responding to people that were desperately in need of help, and doing those calls, making those responses from their own homes, which is something that we hadn't done before. I could never imagine a day when we would have needed to do that, but it's worked. And I think that kind of learning that we've done, that innovation around developing our digital ways to reach people where they are, have been so crucial, and we're going to need to carry on with that sort of work. The biggest challenge, though, is going to be the fallout of the pandemic, and I don't need to tell you what all of those things are, but the links to missing are quite honestly frightening. So we know that 8 out of 10 adults who go missing are in some kind of mental health crisis whilst they're missing, and that's serious. That's people that are maybe thinking about taking their own lives, maybe self-harming, coming to harm whilst they're missing. And we know that the pandemic has really affected people's mental health. We can all relate to that ourselves, and I think things have compounded over time around mental health for young people, for adults. The services are struggling to support out there with people that are struggling with those issues, and we're really worried about the numbers of people who are going missing, but also the risk that people face when they are missing. And we know from police data that people are at more risk of coming to harm than they were before, that there are more high risk people reported missing. And also a really shocking statistic is that over the last few years, the last 3 years, people who have died whilst being missing has risen by 34%. So in 2019-20, and I say this with a really heavy heart, 955 people died whilst they were missing. So the urgency of being able to get appeals out there, to provide the services that we do, and to be a lifeline, to be someone to support anyone going through this at the end of the line, has really never been more important. And that's why I'm really glad to see you today, for supporting this cause alongside the brilliant people on our team, and also supporters like Beck, who I'd really like to introduce to you now. Beck is a great supporter of the charity, raising funds for us, Beck, doing incredible runs and walks. I think you just did the half marathon recently, I think with your dog. Am I right in saying that?
Well, it wasn't my dog, it was a friend's dog. I think I've just about recovered from the half marathon.
I was there that day and sadly didn't see you whilst I was trudging around.
I did actually see you run past.
Oh, very slowly. Beck, thank you so much for joining. And I said in the introduction that no one knows missing unless they've been through it. And I'm so sorry for your experiences, and anything that you so generously share with us today is over to you, what you're willing to share, of course. And maybe if you were able to start just by saying, what your original connection to the charity was a few years ago.
Yeah, hi Jo, thank you, and hi everyone else. I thought quickly I'd show you a photo of Finn, who's my son that is missing, and I just thought, it's quite nice to put a face to a name that you hear. So yeah, my connection to charity started when my son Finn went missing in July 2017, when he was 17 years old. And so my connection to charity started a few days after he went missing, when we sort of accessed help from them. I mean, I'd never heard of the charity before, so it was a sort of process that we went through. And one of my friends came to me one morning and just said, right, you need to ring these people. So yeah, that was how my connection with the charity started.
If it's okay, would you be able to tell us about when Finn went missing, what that was like in those first few hours, few days for you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, pretty horrendous, as I'm sure anyone can imagine. But I mean, I think it's very difficult. And I've always thought this since Finn went missing. It's really hard to sort of comprehend what that feels like. And actually, before Finn went missing, I wouldn't have been able to do it as a parent either, because it is your worst fear. But yeah, so it's been very difficult. But Finn, like I say, he was 17 and he was just sort of started to go to college and do his A-levels and stuff. And then a few months after he started college, he was started to suffer from anxiety a bit. And, we were it was sort of gradually getting worse, and we were trying to access help. Myself and Finn's dad, we were separated a few years before that, but we were both very aware of, Finn's state deteriorating slightly. Tried to access help from CAMS, but because I think I live down in Cornwall, so it's sort of the mental health care in Cornwall is renownedly underfunded, like it is in many places in the country. But I think Cornwall's probably a particularly bad area, and so sort of trying to access help from CAMS for Finn. They didn't really want to deal with it because Finn was 17, nearly 18, so it was a bit like a hot potato, and adults kept putting it back to CAMS, and we ended up only very, very just about accessing some help at the point that Finn went missing. So that was very distressing as well before he even went missing. So that was quite hard to deal with. And then, then one day I was away with my youngest son that night, and Finn was staying with a friend, like 17-year-olds do. It wasn't any big deal. And I thought the next day I was going to ring him. And I thought, I'll wait till about midday, because they probably, had a couple of beers or something. And, teenagers don't wake up that early. So I sort of started trying to get hold of him about midday-ish. And then I couldn't get hold of him for a few hours. Didn't particularly worry, because I thought, he might be out of reception or something. And then eventually I sort of got hold of his dad, and I just said, do you know where Finn is? And he was like, no, I think he was staying at his mate's house. So started to feel a bit worried by then. So Finn's father and myself just said, right, we're going to have a proper ring around everyone, just like find out. And if we can't find him, then we're going to have to call the police. So, a little while later, we ended up calling the police, and then everything just sort of kicked off from there. And it's just the most devastating. I mean, it's like if you lose a child in a crowd for 5 seconds, it's horrible, but to sort of suddenly think, oh my God, this is like something serious has happened. And I think I've never had it in my life before, this real sort of, I was sort of running up the road to try and find some people, and I literally just hit this invisible wall of just utter sort of like fear, and I sort of bent over and was just trying to sort of catch my breath. And I just thought, whatever happens from this point, life is going to be different. And, whether I find, whatever's happened to Finn, whatever's going on, I know this is something really serious. So yeah, it was just a horrible feeling. And, it doesn't get a lot easier, I've got to say, when you've got someone missing. But yeah, and then sort of from that point, my community where I live in Cornwall, they were, friends and that were just utterly amazing. They set up a sort of HQ, and we started searching. Obviously, the police were involved as well at the beginning. And, we posted the whole country ourselves. This is before I knew about Missing People Charity. And like I said, and then, we were doing everything we could out all day and all night. And then eventually I got hold of the charity. And I was assigned a family support worker on the services side of the charity.
Yeah.
And then they helped me sort of set up an appeal for Finn, and then you start to be able to do media stuff, and put appeal posters up and online and things like that. And I think when you're in I can't tell you how it's almost impossible to think at that point because you're just so frightened. So it's really good to have that help to sort of get things rolling. But yeah, so that's my connection to the charity, and my beautiful boy who's missing for over 4 years now.
Oh, it's quite something to hear that, and thank you. I'm sure on behalf of everyone on this call, Beck, for sharing something that's so personal to you. Hearts go out to you, and as you say, sort of 4 years on, just really, really hard. When you shared the photo of Finn at the beginning, it's lovely to see his picture. Is there anything you want to tell us about his character, the sort of person he is?
Yeah, I mean, Finn was like, I think I don't know if any of you guys have got children, but when they're that age, sort of 16, 17, they've got it's quite an exciting time of life for them. They've got the whole life in front of them. Finn, we live in Cornwall, he loved the sea, he rode he had motorbikes, he was just absolutely, that was his joy, just sort of riding around on his bikes. Sometimes I used to like ring him up and say, coming over for dinner, he'd be like, oh, I'm in Somerset, I've just driven to Somerset. I'm like, okay, just for the pure joy of going for a ride. And, I really miss that, just sort of hearing him. He had a very noisy motorbike, and I just sort of miss hearing it. Sort of, I could hear him from miles away coming home. And just those things are really hard. We love listening to music together. And, yeah, I mean, there's so many things to miss. I miss his character. He was an intelligent young man who had a lot, you could have some very, very good talks to. And anyone who met him, he was just interested in life. And so, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Sounds like a great connection between the two of you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And when you talked about the support from your kind of your network, community, and then reaching out to missing people you've not heard of us before, which is something that we hear a lot. What's helped? What's helped you in this time?
I think the things that have helped, obviously, like friends and stuff have been incredible, and they've really watched my back. And I mean, I think, Jo, you've met quite a few of my friends over the last few years, and they've been a brilliant support. They'll throw themselves into anything. But just here on the ground when everything, when Finn went missing originally, they were just so great to me. I mean, they've literally kept me alive, basically, and sort of kept me going as well. When I was having some bad days, someone would just come along, right, come on, let's, and they'd really sort of just pick me up and help me. The local community have been brilliant as well, I've got to say. And the charity as well, once I made contact with charity, they've sort of helped in lots of different ways. Obviously, like I say, putting appeals out for Finn and things. I had my first set of counselling via the charity, because they're the only people that specialise in counselling for ambiguous loss. And that was a real help. And although that's finished for me after a few months, I've carried on doing my counselling here privately in Cornwall. And I certainly don't think I'd be where I am now if I hadn't done all that. And I did it because of my younger son Noah as well, because obviously this is very stressful for everyone, and I just thought, if I crumble here and fall to pieces, there is only me, and if Finn comes back, I've got to be okay, and I've got to be okay for Noah as well.
Yeah. It sounds like you've got an amazing group of friends, and as you say, I've met a few of them, and their kind of care and love for you is just so apparent. I know also you've been part of the Missing People Choir, and music's been quite a big thing for the charity. How's that experience been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an experience. Let's put it that way. I sort of I think the first time I saw the choir, so I went to St Martin's in the Field to the Missing People Carol concert, which normally not in COVID times we do sort of every December. And a few months after Finn went missing, my family support worker says, why don't you come up to London and sort of, you can meet a few other families and things. And I just thought, well, why not? Because it's a very lonely place to have your child missing and not know anyone in a similar situation, because like I say, you just can't comprehend how you carry on or what it's going to be like going forwards and things. So I thought, I went to the carol concert and the choir was singing at St Martin's in the Fields, and I just sort of sat there. The whole thing is quite extreme when you've just suddenly had someone going missing, and it's your first experience of meeting other people. And I was just sort of watching the choir, and I thought, well, maybe I could join that. And then I was sort of on the next breath, I was thinking, don't be so stupid, you live in Cornwall. But anyway, I did speak to someone at the charity a few weeks after that. I just said, like, what's the deal with the choir? And they just said, well, yeah, you can join. And I was like, okay. And I thought, well, I'd do it to meet other people. That was my main reason for doing it. And also sort of understood that there'd be opportunities to raise awareness about Finn as well. So yeah, I went to my first rehearsal in London. I think I walked into a room of about 40 people. I didn't even know if I could sing either, so it was quite extreme. But yeah, and then three and a half years later, I'm still in the choir and can just about sing. I've learned to sing now and learned to read music, and it's been we've done some. The choir is a real mix of, when you're meet privately as a group, it's, there's obviously lots of different people that got someone missing. It might be children, siblings, parents, whatever. It's just like a real mixed range of people, and a mixed range of people how they deal with their situation as well. So that's quite a private side of it. And then on the flip side of it, we've done lots of big performances. And I think just before, actually about the time that Finn went missing, the choir were in the final of Britain's Got Talent, which, raised a massive amount of awareness for the charity and for the people that were missing. And I think, if I'm right, Jo, I think 3 people came back because of seeing that as well. And that's, for me to be part of the choir, the only reason I'm stood up there on the stage is because of my boy, because, that's my drive. And, we've sung at the O2 a couple of years ago in front of 20,000 people. And, I'm not even frightened. I'm just like, I know I'm doing this. And, so that's my drive for doing that.
Yeah. And to hear the choir singing is just incredible. It's so emotional, and you just get that sense of that community.
Yeah.
You've got that connection with people, and as you say, singing for your boy. Just final question then would be: is there anything that you want to share with us that you've not said that's important to say?
I think it's quite. I've actually at the beginning of COVID, we've sort of since then we've started a social group once a week, and it sort of stemmed from I was on the advisory group, sort of setting up a new website with a charity, and quite a few family members. We call family members. That's people that got someone missing. We're sort of there to sort of help advise, and then lockdown happened, and we sort of carried on our meetings, but decided to do it weekly, just so we could sort of touch base. And there's a lady from America and another one from Canada. They've all had people missing in this country, so it was quite a varied group of people. But it was really nice, and actually that's grown now into a bit of a community over the last couple of years. And I sort of feel, I was so proud, but I feel quite proud to be part of that at the beginning. And it's something that's grown, and the charity have realised that, they've sort of listened and realised that it was a good thing to sort of keep going. So that's something I think it's quite important to say about as well. The help that, that I know there's many facets of the charity, and as a mother that's got a son missing, I only really access sort of one side of it on the services side. But, there are a lot of people, some of the people that I'm in touch with that are friends now and stuff, they've had children missing for 25 years. I mean, this is like serious amounts of time. And I think it's been a real help for everyone just to talk openly and honestly about our experience.
Well, you've talked so openly and honestly today, and a huge thank you from me and everyone at the charity, not just for talking today about something so personal and affecting, but also the support that you provide, the guidance, the steer for us, part of it with us, and not least the raising money as well to help other people in the same situation, which means so much. And I just say a huge thank you on behalf of everyone, Beck, for all of your support and for talking to us today. Really appreciated.
Thanks, Jo, and thanks to everyone for hearing my story. And if keep an eye out for Finn's appeal posters and share it if you see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beck.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Alex now to take us through the next part.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing that today, Beck. I'm Alex Livingston. I'm the Philanthropy and Partnerships Manager at Missing People, and I just wanted to introduce 4 short but fantastic videos from supporters and frontline staff. We've got Giles, Managing Director at CIL, talking about our partnership over the past sort of 6+ years. I'll never forget CIL, as I was put forward to join them on a 9-hour challenge in my first week at Missing People. put forward, not volunteered. I will reiterate that. We've got the irrepressible Karen Horton-Palmstrom from our enterprise board, who talks about her motivation to support those affected by missing. And then we've got two fantastic missing people staff sort of leading our frontline services. We've got Remy, our family support manager, about why she loves being on the helpline, and Oliver Mann, who's very popular in fundraising at the moment after his recent half marathon, talking about an extraordinary case study and how our frontline staff really pulled together to support someone in crisis. And so those are the 4 videos. And lastly, what I would say is just bear in mind that we're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A after these videos. So if you do have any questions, whenever they pop into your head, if you can just go into the chat function and write the question down, I can then read those out to Jo at the end and put her through the ringer with some questions. So yeah, Ashani, if you hit play on the videos.
Hello, I'm Giles Johnson. I'm the managing partner of CIL Management Consultants, and I'm here to talk about support we provide for missing people. Missing People is a charity we met through a friend of mine back in 2015. Met Jo, and she gave us a pretty hard time, actually wanted to test our motives, and I suppose that was the first thing we liked about the charity. It's a tough, gritty charity, and it wanted to make sure that we were going to be a partner, a proper partner, and our motives were good. The things we like about them, aside from what I've already said there, was that we felt this was a charity where we could provide long-term support. We wanted something deeper than just support a charity for a year or two and then move on to a new one. And the analysis of what they actually do, the problem they solve, bore scrutiny. It's a gritty, hardworking, unfussy, modest, humble place. It deals with a problem that's somewhat hidden, but right in our own backyard. Again, something that we were keen to have as a feature of the charity we supported. The issue takes a bit of thinking about. Is not an immediately obvious charity to support. Can we like that? The obvious charities get plenty of support anyway. What difference were we going to make there? We're aware of the gaps left by austerity between social services and police and how the charity plays in that gap and joins up those dots. We went to their offices and we could see that all the money that you raise for them goes to the front line. There's very little bureaucracy. They're not in fancy offices, etc. Another reason to support the charity is the people and the culture from Jo down. They're empathetic, they're serious, passionate, but they're fun-loving and they enjoy life too. There are plenty of sad stories. There are the 20-year unresolved cases. They're very patient with those cases and they do whatever they can to support those people. But they also celebrate the successes, and there's plenty of fun there too. So they're incredibly appreciative, they're humble, appreciate the support we give them, but really that humility should be the other way around. They work a lot harder than we do. So what do? We do general fundraising, we do consulting work for them, and we do sponsorships. General fundraising, we've done 9-hour challenges, which is cycling and walking for 9 hours. I think the one I did was actually 10 through the Beck Beacons. We did one in Dorset, and then more recently an 8-hour cycle challenge, which raised about £5 cycling around Brands Hatch in teams. Marathons, half marathons, we go to the gala dinners, we've given gifts as auction prizes, we sacrificed our Secret Santa monies one year, put them all out in a pot, and that was a donation. We've done an office auction and so on. So lots of fun fundraising activities, and the staff really enjoy those. We've done consulting for them where we're helping them develop services and ongoing revenue streams, and we've sponsored this research into the whole issue of missing, which the charity uses as an evidence base for their conversations with police and social services. They will come and talk at company events, and that can be very inspirational, sort of real show-stopping stuff from Jo down to support workers. Our staff are very supportive, and it really deepens their and our sense of purpose in terms of the work we do, knowing that a chunk of what we do is siphoned off to support missing people, and ultimately we enjoy the activities. So look, in conclusion, cannot recommend them enough. The problem's ongoing. The pandemic has made things tougher. You, your company, its staff will gain a lot. You'll have fun, and you will really know that your efforts and money are doing good and making a difference.
Hi there, I'm Karen and I'm a volunteer with Missing People. I help on their enterprise board. I joined the charity 3 years ago when my daughter was a few months old and my son was just over a year. And I just felt like I needed a bit more responsibility in my life. That's not the truth. The truth is that I heard about the charity and it was an offer I couldn't refuse. As a parent for the second time, when I heard some of the stories, it really just made my heart break. The thought of your child walking out one day and not coming home is just unimaginable. I always think back to the story of Lee Boxall, one of the first stories I heard when I joined the charity. Now, Lee Boxall was a big football fan, as am I. He went out to Selhurst Park on Saturdays. He did most home games. But that day he never came home. His parents are now stuck in a situation where they have never moved house. They still cook a Christmas lunch for him every year. And every time the doorbell goes, the door knocks, they just live in hope that it might be him. His bedroom still remains the same as it did on that day in September 1988. That daily not knowing must be torture for the parents and for their families, and no one should ever have to go through that. As one other family member of a missing person told us, it's like living in prison. You can't continue with your life and have to just stay at home in case. It's that closure that they may never have that is just so awful. The other reason I chose to support missing people is that link to mental health. Up to 80% of the 100,000 adults that go missing each year have mental health problems, and 1 in 20 are suicidal. I grew up with a mum who had very serious mental health issues, and she had a full-on breakdown when I was 9 and was admitted to hospital. I know how hard that was for my family. I'm an only child, so at 9 I became the mum of the family. And you know, there were times I wanted to run away. There were times my mum certainly wanted to run away. It's so hard dealing with the mental health issues, and it's so hard for their families, for those individuals. And sometimes just disappearing feels like the only option. But missing people are there at the end of the phone, a text for people who are struggling with those thoughts. I continue to support missing people because I know firsthand that the money they raise goes on the most vital things. They don't have fancy offices. I've been to them. They're above a Waitrose in southwest London. They're nice, but they're not fancy. They don't waste the money. The money goes on the critical things. It goes on missing campaigns. It goes on the helpline, on the text safe messaging site. Basically, it goes on being there when they are really needed. Unfortunately, the pandemic has had such a huge impact on charities. Missing people were fielding more calls than ever due to the strains on mental well-being that occurred from lockdown. But also they lost such a vital amount of fundraising. And that's why they need your support now more than ever to help them carry on doing the phenomenal work that they do. Finally, before I go, I just want to say that since I started speaking just over 4 minutes ago, 3 people have gone missing in the UK. Can you imagine? That's 3 people have gone missing. 3 families are now sat at home desperately hoping for the door to ring, for the phone to ring, for some news of their family member. The majority of people who go missing are found within 24 hours. But for that to happen, we need your support for this wonderful charity. So please, please do what you can to support missing people. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Remy. I'm the Family Support Manager here at Missing People, and I've been with the charity for just over a year now. for me, what makes working on the helpline great is that like no call's the same, and you don't know who's going to come through, and you've got a small window really to be there for someone and to support them. And I think that's what's really important, is that you can make such a difference in that small moment in someone's day, their year, their life. So that's what makes it really great for me. And when I think about some of the calls that I've taken in my time in being here that have really been really special, are when the person isn't sometimes even sure what they want from a helpline. They maybe Googled our number and not quite sure how we can help them if we're able to be there. And because we're like caller led and a listening ear, we just listen to what's going on for that person. And you may be the only person in their world at that moment that's actually just listening to how they feel and how their experience is for them. And I think that's really important, and that's what makes it great, like to be in a role where I can just listen.
My name's Oliver. I'm one of the senior helpline coordinators at Missing People. I work in the services team, which is the team we have for operating the helpline, our chat support, text and email support, and our family support services. We recently had a caller who needed a lot of support. They had received one of our tech safes and had called into the helpline. Their first language wasn't English, and we offered the use of a translator, which they agreed to, and we went through to a translation service. Even before we had the interpreter on the line, though, we knew this person was in distress and possibly in pain as well from how they were speaking. Once we had the interpreter, they had gone missing from hospital. They had a number of conditions which affected their cognitive state and their memory, and they were struggling to even recall what their own name was, so we're very worried about this person. Their physical state then took a turn, and they were struggling with breathing and started to collapse to the ground and weren't able to know where they were. So we wanted to get help out to them as soon as possible. We managed to get some landmarks of where they were, and then using an online map we were able to get an approximate location. One of the members of the helpline team rang through to 999 and requested an ambulance as soon as possible, and the other member of the team stayed on the line with our caller and the interpreter, offering reassurance and support that we were trying to get them help. Luckily, while the paramedics were on their way, a couple of passerbys were able to spot this person and came over to also help, and they were able to get further support from a nearby hospital and get them back into care. We were very glad to be able to help that person when they were in need, and the sort of thought that you have afterwards of, what if they didn't get a tech safe, or what if they weren't able to call in? The outcome could be very different and very worrying. So it was one of those situations where we were able to help and get that person to safety.
Bro, that was fantastic. Thanks all of those people who were involved in those videos. We really appreciate it. Joe, are you back on camera? Yeah. So far, we've only got one question. So if anyone does have another question, there we go. We've got another one coming in now. So if anyone does have any questions, keep putting them in the window, and I'll do my best to read them out. So the first question we have, Joe, is how does Missing People usually engage employees?
Great question, and you'll have heard from Giles there that there's so many different ways that employees can get involved. One of the things I love is people being able to lend their expertise and their skills to what we do, because sometimes we need more brains to help us plan out things. So, for example, working with organisations that have helped us on tech development, as well as employees that are willing to climb mountains, as Giles and his team have done, and I've climbed a mountain with them as well. I think some people love the fun side of supporting a charity, cake sales and running events within their workplace, and others really want to get involved in more of the serious side. And so there's lots of different ways that people can get involved and create impact help people, and I think that's the most motivating factor. We work really closely with our partners, as many of you will know, such that people feel kind of part of it with us, and I think that's really important. So yeah, loads of opportunities, and I know that the team are ready to talk to anyone if they want to go through any potential ideas and ways that you might be able to get involved.
Absolutely, we will. Please get in contact if you want any more information from the team. Secondly, how would you demonstrate the impact of a donation?
Really important question, and I've supported a lot of people who want to donate to the charity, and I think it's really individual. So someone that I'm thinking of now who wanted to remain very quiet and wanted to be a benefactor without any particular recognition, but just wants a conversation every now and again to know how the charity is doing and what sort of difference we're making, and therefore they are part of. We know that other people love to be able to talk about the donation that they've made and the impact that they're making, so we'd always be sharing statistics and impact reports that we produce every year, and explaining exactly how their support has made a difference. And then those people often want to encourage other people to make donations as well, and that's even better. But I think it is quite individual, and there are those sort of public facing opportunities. There's a list of names, for example, in the impact report that lists all the people that help us in big and small ways, and we are grateful to all of them. And in fact, one thing I just can never really quite get my head around is the businesses that support us, often the people that are running the businesses, part of the businesses, are also making their own personal donations as well. And so we try and treat everybody individually according to the best way that they want to be recognised, and that they feel like real sense of ownership of making a difference. And I think listening to Beck speak there, you can imagine the sort of difference donations make to the organisation, to the front line, to the training, and providing things like the counselling service, as Beck said, is totally unique. So there's lots of different ways that kind of support helps us, as well as in the kind of strategic planning of the charity as well.
Absolutely. And the last one we've got is, do you have any social media graphics and events that we could share on our channels? And that's from Riva.
You might want to come in on that one as well, Alex.
Yeah.
As we kind of
No, absolutely.
Stuff, haven't we?
We absolutely do. We've got lots of great social media graphics that we can share for people who want to get involved, or whether people want to get involved in specific campaigns. I know we've got our Home for Christmas campaign coming up, which we'd really appreciate people supporting our social media activities and really getting that message of awareness out there. And there's also, we do get our appeals out digitally as well. So that's something that people can always share. And again, you know, the more people who see those appeals, the more likely somebody is to see that person and potentially for them to be found. So yeah, absolutely, we'll be in touch on the events and the graphics later. And does anyone else have any more questions before we wrap up? What I would say as well, if you have got any questions and you don't want to share them so now, please feel please get in contact with us and just fire some questions at us. We'll be happy to answer them. There we go. Are unrestricted or restricted donations best for you?
Maybe if I just pick this up. So restricted donations are when somebody gives us money and wants it spent on a very particular part of our work, which is brilliant. And we work with lots of different pots of money that are focused on projects, and we're also receipt of unrestricted, which is people going, here you go, here are funds for your charity, spend it as you wish. It's really important for charities to have a mix of both, to both back the projects but also to support the wider charity work. And I'm always just really touched by, for example, People's Postcode Lottery, who support us incredibly and will say to us, you know, we'll explain what we're doing. They know us really well. We share our impact report, but ultimately they say, you know what you're doing, and we support you and we give you this donation to enable you to continue your work. So both are great, and unrestricted often gives us a bit more freedom.
Perfect. And then probably the last one, if we can quickly fit it in before we go, do you have or would you consider an app for information to be reported or shared out to partners?
Yeah, I like the idea of that. I'd love to know more what the thinking is behind the question, because I suspect that's someone with an idea. So do share it with us. I think development of technology, digital apps is really going to be even more critical than it has been. So yeah, open to all of that and any ideas that anyone wants to share with us.
Perfect. Well, I'll leave you to have the last word, Jo.
I love having the last word. Thanks for being part of this with us, being part of the missing people community as you are. But I think it's right that the last word goes to Beck, and to share the appeals for her son Finn. That helps you be part of what we're doing. And Beck, thank you. I see you there on screen. Thanks for being part of this. And I don't know if you want a final word. Over to you.
Well, my final word, I guess, would be just to say thank you to the charity for the help that I have had. You know, I do my own social media stuff once a month as well, and like I say, if anyone can share that, you know, I just keep trying to put Finn's face out there and raise awareness. And I think my final word would be, as Finn's mum, I'll never give up hope. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, Beck.